We've got Mike Quick in studio. We're going to talk about the Minnesota Vikings. A little first look presented by Whip Fleet. But before we talk about the Vikings, Mike, let's talk about the win over the Atlanta Falcons and just how the defense stepped up, Nick Foles stepped up, coaching staff stepped up, crowd stepped up. Really fun Saturday at Lincoln Financial Field.
So you're saying everybody stepped up?
Everybody stepped up.
So I thought the coaching staff did one of the best jobs that they've done all season, Dave, in preparing this team. And I thought the way Doug Peterson called the football game was just a masterpiece. The mixes of plays, the getting Nick Foles into a comfortable situation, and I thought the entire game he was just on point with his play calling, keeping the defense off balance.
And then the defense obviously did its job dominating up front, limiting the Atlanta Falcons' run game, and then keeping them out of the end zone in the red zone.
You know, there was a lot of talk about Fletcher Cox and his play and what he's done over the past few games. Well, this game, Fletcher Cox wrecked that offense the entire football game. Early in the game, the double teams, he was able to split double teams and make plays on the quarterback. And when they tried to block him one-on-one, fighting guys off, making plays in the run game, even when he didn't hit the quarterback, and I think he only had one sack, he was affecting the quarterback, getting him off of the spot and making sure that Matt Ryan wasn't comfortable, and that's what you got to have. And even on the back end, they played outstanding defense. So there was all around, it's a great football game, and you're right, everybody involved, coaching staff, and certainly the fans. It's so hard to come into Philadelphia and get a win, and the fans, I think they're a big part of that.
And as we turn the page like the football team did days ago and get our first look here at the Minnesota Vikings, we all understand that the same thing has to happen on Sunday, that everybody has to play a part to beat a very good 14-3 Minnesota Vikings team, the number 2 seed in the NFC playoffs. Yep. Win over the Atlanta Falcons, or over the New Orleans Saints on Sunday. A little bit of luck involved there, maybe a lot of bit of luck involved, but that doesn't change the fact that this is an outstanding team that, Mike, I think is very much like the Eagles. I mean, everything from backup quarterback to strength inside to just the way they kind of run the football, play the football game defensively. I mean, it's very similar teams.
Yep, you're exactly right. We'll start on the offensive side. And their offensive coordinator is Pat Shermer.
Yeah.
So he and Doug Peterson from very similar trees. And they understand the game the same way. They kind of use a lot of similar plays. And that offense really leans on the screen game. They lean on misdirection. You know, they've got a good receiver in Adam Thielen on the outside, but schematically, there's going to be a lot of misdirection things. There's going to be a lot of similar things that you'll see from the Eagles offense.
Yeah, it's fun. So let's talk about the matchups here.
Yep.
Jim Schwartz is looking at Case Keenum, who was a little bit frenetic in the second half against the Saints on Sunday, at times certainly in the fourth quarter. What is Jim going to try to do against Keenum and that Minnesota offense?
I think, first of all, they want to stop them from running the football and, of course, take away their number one target. But you have to be able to get pressure on him. You have to be able to try and get Case Keenum to do something outside the structure of the design of the offense. And if you can get him off the spot, get him to have to make a play himself rather than what the play is designed to do, that's when you're going to have success against him, and that's what Jim Schwartz will concentrate on.
Case Keenum, here's a good statistic. A passer rating of 5.1 when pressured in the game against the Saints. A passer rating of 116.5 when the pocket was clean. So however you want to do it, you got to find a way to get in the kid's grill.
See, that's a good way of simplifying it, and it's really just saying, get him off of the spot, get him doing something outside of the design of what the play is. When you do that, he's not effective.
Mike, on the outside, they've got Adam Thielen, terrific player, excellent on third downs. Diggs, big playmaker. They've got Kyle Rudolph, a gigantic tight end who's not particularly fast. How do you see that matchup, the Eagles' cornerbacks and safety linebackers against those three?
So Rudolph, I think, is a big red zone target when they get down on the goal line because he's so big, because he's going to jump ball situations. He's bigger than your safeties. He's bigger than your linebackers. He's just big. So they have to be concerned about him there. But in the field, yeah, you have to worry about Diggs. You have to worry about Adam Thielen because they're very, very good receivers. And I think two of the more polished receivers, when I watch Thielen run routes, I think he's very polished and he catches everything. And he's a great story. Guy comes out of nowhere and ends up being just an outstanding wide receiver in this league.
Well, it's interesting, Mike. The Eagles criticized so much in the secondary, yet they played terrifically well against the Falcons. So they rise to the challenges. Well, and of course, it will come down to the front, defensive line, offensive line. How does it match up Fletcher and company against the Vikings? Big, strong guys.
I just think that this defensive front that the Eagles will put onto the field, even with the backups, they go away from the big rotation. They only had 3 tackles rotating in the game on Sunday.
Right.
And you may see that again, but they're effective. And I thought Fletcher Cox, again, I have to go back to him because I thought he played such a dynamic game. Didn't want to come off the field late in the game. Stayed on the field, had a lot of snaps. May have been his most snaps in a long time, but he played great. And I think the same thing. This team will have to once again lean on that defensive front, the front 7, front 8, when you throw in Malcolm Jenkins. That's an 8-man front. They have to lean on these guys to make sure that they limit the production of that offense.
All right, the other side of the ball, let's talk about it with this question, Mike. How will the Eagles score points against such a great Vikings defense?
First thing, you have to block up Everson Griffin. Laval Joseph, he's the big guy in the middle, and it's hard to move him. He's 340-plus pounds. Hard to run the ball at him. The tough thing about the Minnesota Vikings defense, Dave, they're good at every level. In the trenches, they're really good. And then they've got Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks at the linebackers. They've got Xavier Rhodes and Waynes on the corners. Their safeties are good. At all levels, they have talented players. So it comes down to a lot of things that we saw in last week's game. Misdirection, trying to get the linebackers' eyes one way when you want to throw a screen back the other way. It comes down to a lot of window dressing so that you can deceive them at the line of scrimmage and try and get a play behind them. Lots of things like that. The Eagles were successful against the Atlanta Falcons. I think it is a similar type game plan against the Minnesota Vikings.
So we're looking at another low-scoring slugfest kind of game.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, no turnover. The amazing thing, Mike, is that the Eagles were able to win that game with a -2 turnover ratio, which never happens in the NFL.
And see, you can't allow that, though. I think the team that really forces the other team's quarterback to make mistakes, I think the team that has the turnovers in this game, I think that'll be the team that'll end up sitting home watching the Super Bowl.
Turnovers, the big statistic to keep an eye on. That is our first look at the Minnesota Vikings, presented by Whip Flea. Thanks so much, Mike Quick. More to get to here on Eagles 360. We've mentioned him a lot here, but when we come back, we're going to do a progress report. Mike Quick, Ike Reese, taking a look at the great Fletcher Cox.